Hey guys, in this video I'm going to talk about some tips and tricks regarding development and IDEs specifically. These are things which I have learned over the course of 3 years of coding, and I think that everybody who is beginning coding or even has been coding for a while should be aware of these things. So without any further ado, let's begin. So the first thing that I think every developer should have is a good personalized customized coding IDE. And people have different choices. Some people prefer Visual Studio Code. It's just this one. It's a lightweight and very powerful IDE. For example, if I have a file opened up here, I can manipulate tabs over here to look at the outline of the program and find stuff easily. Now this might seem kind of boring when you have a small file, but when you go on later in your developer life cycle and you start creating big code chunks, something like this, goes on for thousands of lines of code, or in this case 700 lines of code, then this outline will become really handy because you can look at functions, look at what variables you're defining where, and the scope of those variables as well. So Visual Studio Code is really powerful in this matter, and it can be used for a variety of languages. I don't think there is any language which Visual Studio Code doesn't support. If you can create a file of it, then Visual Studio Code supports it, and that's easy as well. You just go over here and for example, if I have to create an index code of Python file, and I just add .py to it and x, and it's created, and I can run this as well in the code in the IDE itself. And now the other one, for those of you who are coding in Python specifically, even though Visual Studio Code is very good, and it might be a very good beginning point for you, I still recommend that you start with something more verbose, something more personalized towards Python, that is PyCharm. And PyCharm has a lot of options available to you. You can use either the community version or the professional version. I myself use the professional version because I have a license for it, but the community version, I think I used it for like 3 years before today, and it was great. It's not limited in any factor that you should not download it. And well, this is the professional version, but still they're pretty much the same. So even in here, you see you have the and in Python is mainly run by packages. You will see that you mainly focused on installing the right packages, and that's kind of made extremely easy over here. For example, if I have to download Jupyter notebooks over here, I can just search Jupyter, and yeah, it comes up with all the Jupyter packages in Python. So but we will do this separately. Anyway, so these are all the real functionalities that you can have specifically made for Python, which you won't find in Visual Studio Code, for example. So it's a give and take, but PyCharm is really good for that. And now if you're coding in Python, there can be many times, and I think in coding in general, when you need to run something and tweak something just a second after, and it can become really tedious if you have to go back, run the file, and do it all over and over again and look at this. So that's why I prefer something called Jupyter Notebooks. So to install that, you just use pip install Jupyter Books, and this will install the Jupyter Notebook to my system. And while it does that, let me go on to the website. So this is what Jupyter Notebooks is. It's an interactive and next level, coding IDE. It's just a coding IDE, but it's in much more, easier to work with if you're tweaking everything after a few lines of code. So you have an introduction, and I will link all of this over here. But if we just create a simple one, a simple Py notebook, and you can see Jupyter notebooks have the extension .ipynb. Let's say I want to create a variable a equals to 10 in this, and let's run this. And here I want to define a function of multiply a by 10. I don't know why anybody would need to do this, but never mind that. Say I have potato it and I return egg. So I need to define this and then I call the function. Oh, I should have done this. And I need to define. So this is kind of easy as well, because if you see an error, it's very easy to change it. You just run the column again, and now if you call it, until A is not defined. Oh yes. Let me check if everything else is right. Yes, everything else does seem to be right. Yeah, it gives us back 100. And now I can change it to whatever I want it to be. For example, I can make it stars and changes. So it's kind of the best way to code if for data science and data analysis, because you can completely changing things, to make out what kind of columns you have in your database and what kind of data you're actually dealing with. Look at graphs that you make from the data. So Jupyter Notebook really comes into use while you're doing that. So that's the first thing that I think every developer should have. So to make their life that much easier is a good coding IDE. So you can either have Visual Studio Code, or you can have PyCharm if you're going towards Python specifically, and then Jupyter is for Python. And I'm more of a Python developer, so you can see my coding cycle is focused more towards Python. But obviously there is IntelliJ, there is Go World, there is Sea Lion, and there are all kind of IDEs. You can look at their websites here. And there's WebStorm, there's Eclipse, but these are the ones that people are using in the industry: PyCharm, IntelliJ, Golang, CLine. So yeah, it would be best if you start making yourself comfortable with them, because you're going to be working in the industry with them anyways, and not for no reason. These are really useful IDEs, as you can see over here.